Sure. This is a phenomenon that I see all the time. I see it even with friends and family and people that are close to me as well, of they will have beliefs that they had as a child, and it's almost that they haven't physically grown up. So they will see evidence around them, but they choose to ignore this evidence, as we're discussing here, Aaron. But it's almost like they've got cognitive biases that want to force them. I don't know what the cognitive biases are. We could probably outline some of them, but they're almost not allowing themselves to become an adult and have their own thoughts and opinions, because I feel like one of the most important elements of becoming an adult is you can listen to a parent, you can listen to uncle, friend, whoever it is, someone who has seemingly authority in your life at a younger age, and you can choose to not listen to them. I think that's like the fundamental step of becoming an adult. Well, with that said, then why is it so difficult to challenge our own assumptions and beliefs when seemingly success is on the other side of learning how to challenge them? Why is it so difficult to do it?
Well, I'll put it in the context of sales, and I think sales is a almost fertile breeding ground for bad habits because there's so much repetition in it, right? And then you start to slip into abductive logic versus deductive logic. So if you make 5 calls and you get the same objection 2 times, it's really easy to turn around and go, well, every call is going to get that objection. So you start using abductive logic versus, okay, well, let's make a list of how many times I get that and let's work on getting better at it. Particularly when it comes to learning, right? When you learn a new skill, you're shit at it. You're just not good at that skill. So what people do is they turn around, they make 3 calls with the new skill and they go, well, that's not working, therefore I'll give up. That's classic abductive logic. Deductive logic is going, well, I'll do it 100 times. I'll see where I went wrong and I'll improve on the areas where I went wrong. So I think, and I always say this, is that because there's so much around KPIs and activity in sales, you almost create the most fertile breeding ground for bad habits. And getting salespeople to analyze those bad habits and undo them, particularly when they perceive that they work, where actually when you look across the grand scale of things, they probably don't work that effectively. They work 1 in 200, 300 times. It's quite difficult. And I've gone into sales organizations both as a consultant and as a someone who works there. And you've got people who are perceived to be incredibly successful, making loads of money. And then you look at how good they are and you think, actually, there's gaping holes in what they do. And you've got to go and undo it. And it's really hard because they're perceived to be successful. So I'd say in the context of sales, I think one of the reasons why we have these blind spots and one of the reasons why we have these sweeping assumptions is because of the repetition that's involved in it. Do 150 calls a day, you're going to pick up bad habits.
So we could literally, and I'll have you back on to dive into this in the future, because I feel like there's multiple ways we can go with this of self-image and self-esteem and perceived success and all this stuff as well. And whether if you are doing the wrong things, but you're making a load of money, should you even change? Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just plod on if that's if there's a 5-year plan of that ahead of you. So we can perhaps cover that on another episode. But something that's I don't want to gloss over. You mentioned it. We've had Carol Dweck on the podcast in the past. But can you just give us a quick overview of fixed versus growth mindset? Because I feel like this is fundamental to what we're talking about here. Of if you're not forcing yourself into that fixed mindset approach, all of this is irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, fixed mindset, I mean, it comes down to lots of different criteria, but it's a case of not looking at everything as an opportunity to grow or learn something, right? So a really simple example that I use is when I'm doing a training session and someone's on their phone or they're not concentrating, the easy thing to do is to turn around and blame that person. Whereas what I like to do, and this for me was such a big turning point in my career, was to take accountability and say, well, what did I do to create an environment where someone felt that was acceptable? So it's about constantly looking at your own performance, constantly looking at your own mindset, and constantly using everything as a way of learning or grasping it as an opportunity to get something out of it. And then what happens is that failure doesn't become failure. It actually becomes an incredible learning opportunity. And then, no matter what job you're doing, is that you're constantly shedding layers of skin and growing. And if we're not doing that in our job, and some people aren't motivated by that, but typically if we're not doing that in our job, what's the point? That's my perception on it. Like, and I'm a trainer and I'm learning something every day from people that I train as well, because I'm not arrogant enough to think that I know everything. And I think having that mindset of being able to use everything as an opportunity to learn is a pathway to success in itself, because you don't tend to make mistakes the same time over.